The rain hammered against the windows like fists demanding entry, but inside our cramped Brooklyn brownstone, the only storm brewing was the one in Josiah's hands. His fingers dug into my shoulders, not with the practiced ease of a masseuse, but with a desperation that made my breath catch, thumbs pressing like he was trying to unearth something buried deep in my bones. "Dad," he whispered, his voice cracking like thunder on the edge of breaking. "I can't pretend anymore. Not with you." I froze, the heat of his touch searing through the thin fabric of my undershirt, my heart slamming against my ribs as if it knew this moment had been circling us for years, a predator in the shadows of our shared silences. The word "Dad" hung between us, twisted now into something forbidden, something that shattered the fragile dam we'd built around the life we'd pieced together after Mom's accident. The one that left me raising her son alone in the city, that chewed up dreams and spat out regrets. That night in 2018, when the call came from the ER, I'd been elbow-deep in lesson plans for my 8th grade history class at PS 119, scribbling timelines of the American Revolution on the kitchen table while Josiah blasted indie rock from his room upstairs. "Samuel Hargrove?" The doctor's voice had crackled through the phone, clinical and cold. "There's been a crash on the BQE. Your wife, Elena, didn't make it." The world tilted, the Bic pen slipping from my fingers to clatter on the scarred oak surface, ink bleeding like a fresh wound. Josiah, just 17 then, had stumbled down the stairs in his oversized hoodie, eyes wide and feral with the kind of grief that turns boys into ghosts. He'd collapsed into my arms, sobbing into my chest, his body racked with shudders that mirrored my own silent unraveling. "Don't leave me too," he'd gasped, clutching my shirt like a lifeline. And in that vow, unspoken but ironclad, I'd become more than Elena's husband. I became his anchor, his reluctant father in a sea of loss. We buried her under a gray November sky in Greenwood Cemetery, the oldest in New York, where the headstones whispered stories of immigrants and dreamers who'd clawed their way to this borough only to fade into the earth. Josiah stood ramrod straight beside me, his hand slipping into mine as the rabbi intoned Kaddish, Elena's Jewish roots pulling us through the ritual like a threadbare rope. He was all sharp angles and quiet fury back then, a junior at Brooklyn Tech with a sketchbook full of charcoal drawings that bled emotion. Twisted cityscapes, lone figures silhouetted against graffiti walls, eyes that stared out accusing the viewer of their pain. I'd catch him in the attic we'd converted into his studio, hunched over the drafting table, the air thick with the scent of graphite and turpentine. "It's how I keep her close," he'd mutter when I'd bring him mugs of chamomile tea, pretending not to notice the dark circles under his eyes. Raising him wasn't seamless. It was a patchwork of trial and error, stitched with the raw edges of our mutual mourning. I'd quit my weekend gig tutoring SATs to be home more, trading extra cash for late-night talks on the fire escape, where we'd watch the Manhattan skyline pulse like a distant heartbeat. Josiah opened up in fragments. How Elena had taught him to knead dough for challah on Fridays, her laughter filling the kitchen. How she'd beam at his report cards, calling him her little revolutionary. In return, I'd share scraps of my own fractured past. Growing up in a Rust Belt town outside Pittsburgh, the son of a steelworker who drank his disappointments and a mother who mended socks by lamplight, her dreams deferred to PTA meetings and potlucks. "You could have been anything, Sam," she'd say, but I'd chosen teaching because it felt like mending, like handing kids the tools to rewrite their histories. By his senior year, Josiah had bloomed into something fierce and beautiful, his lanky frame filling out with the grace of a runner, track team captain, his spikes eating up the cinder at McCarran Park. He dated sporadically, girls from his art club with nose rings and thrift store dresses. But there was always a hesitance in his stories, a flicker in his hazel eyes that suggested half-truths. I chalked it up to teenage angst, the same fog I'd navigated at his age, burying my own curiosities under football practices and crushes on cheerleaders that never quite ignited. But one humid August evening, as we grilled burgers on the stoop, smoke curling up to mingle with the exhaust from passing cabs, he let slip a confession over the sizzle of patties. "Dad, I think I like guys." The words tumbled out, casual as flipping a bun, but his fork trembled against the plate. I set down my beer, the bottle sweating in the heat, and met his gaze. "Josiah, that's okay. You're okay. We're okay." It was the truth, simple and seismic, echoing the acceptance Elena had always preached. Love in all its messy forms. a mosaic she'd pieced from her own immigrant parents' old-world strictures. That conversation bonded us tighter, or so I thought. We navigated his coming out like co-conspirators. Pride flags discreetly pinned to his backpack. Awkward parent-teacher nights where I'd deflect questions about his interests with jokes about my Civil War obsession. He started at Pratt Institute that fall, commuting on the G train with a portfolio bursting at the seams, majoring in graphic design. Our brownstone became a revolving door of his friends. Queer kids with dyed hair and manifestos, crashing on the couch after gallery openings in Bushwick. I'd make pancakes in the mornings, eavesdropping on their debates about intersectionality and queer theory, feeling a pang of envy for the world they'd inherited. One where closets were relics, not prisons. But beneath the camaraderie, a current stirred, subtle at first, like the Hudson's undertow. It was in the way Josiah's hugs lingered a beat too long after a bad critique. His chin resting on my shoulder, breath warm against my neck. Or how he'd flop beside me on the couch during Knicks games. Legs tangled in a heap of blankets, his laughter vibrating through me when I'd rant about refs. I dismissed it as affection born of proximity, the only family we had left. At 42, I was adrift myself. Elena's absence a hollow in my chest, dates with women from Bumble fizzling into polite coffees. My body, once solid from pickup basketball, had softened around the middle. My reflection in the bathroom mirror showed lines etched by loss, hair thinning at the temples. Who would want this? I'd think, splashing water on my face, ignoring the ache for connection that whispered in the quiet hours. The back pain started innocently enough, a nagging twinge from hauling stacks of textbooks home. Josiah noticed first, during one of our Sunday rituals. Me sprawled on the living room rug, grading papers while he sketched beside me, his pencils whispering across the page. "You're hunched like an old man, Dad," he teased, setting aside his pad. "Let me fix it. I learned this shiatsu thing in my anatomy elective." I laughed it off, but the next weekend, after a 12-hour day wrangling middle schoolers through a field trip to the Met, I relented. Shirt off, prone on the couch, I let him work the knots from my traps, his hands tentative at first, then bolder, mapping the terrain of my scars, the faded one from appendix surgery, the constellation of freckles across my shoulders. It felt good, innocent, a son's care for his father, until it didn't. That rainy Thursday in April 2025, the kind of downpour that turns Brooklyn gutters into rivers, I dragged myself home from a staff meeting, the principal droning about budget cuts like a dirge. My back screamed in protest, a white-hot fire from the lumpy futon I'd crashed on during a late-night parent conference. Josiah was home early, his shift at the coffee shop in Williamsburg cut short by the storm. "Come here," he said, voice muffled from the kitchen where he was nuking leftovers. "I'll sort you out." I stripped to my waist without thinking, the routine by now, and settled face down on the couch, the leather cool against my skin. His palms were warm, oiled faintly with some lavender concoction he'd whipped up, and he knelt behind me, knees bracketing my hips. The pressure built, rhythmic, releasing tension I hadn't known I carried. Then his hands stilled, a hitch in his breath like a record scratch. "Dad," he said again, softer, laced with something raw and unraveling. I twisted slightly, catching his profile in the periphery. Jaw set, eyes distant, as if staring into an abyss only he could see. "What is it?" I murmured, but he didn't answer. Instead, his fingers traced lower, not therapeutic now, but exploratory. A featherlight graze along my spine that sent a jolt straight to my core. Time fractured. The rain outside blurred into white noise. He leaned in, his chest brushing my back, and whispered, "I can't pretend anymore. Not with you. It's always been you." The words landed like a gut punch, stealing my air. I bolted upright, nearly toppling him, my skin prickling with the ghost of his touch. "Josiah, what the hell?" My voice was a rasp, laced with panic and something darker, unnamed. He rocked back on his heels, face crumpling, hands fisting in his lap. "I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean." But he did mean it. The truth blazed in his eyes, mirroring the confusion churning in my gut. The room spun, the weight of 4 years crashing down. Every hug, every shared glance, refracted through this forbidden lens. I'd failed him, not as a father, but as the guardian of boundaries we'd never named. I stumbled to my feet, yanking my shirt over my head like armor, the fabric bunching in my haste. This isn't. We can't. The denial tumbled out, clumsy, but he was already on his feet too, closing the distance with that reckless intensity I'd always admired in his art. Why not? Because I'm your stepson? Because society says it's wrong? Dad, look at us, we're all we have. I've loved you since the funeral, since you held me when the world ended. His voice broke, tears carving tracks down his cheeks, and in that moment, he wasn't the 20-year-old artist with a future unfolding. He was the boy who'd lost his mother, grasping for salvation in the wrong arms. I backed away, palms up, heart thundering. Love isn't this. It's not like that, Joe. But even as I said it, doubt slithered in, the way my pulse had quickened under his hands, the loneliness that echoed his words. Elena's photo watched from the mantel, her smile serene, oblivious to the fracture lines spiderwebbing our foundation. Outside, lightning cracked, illuminating the room in stark relief. Two men on the precipice, one step from freefall. That confession ignited a fuse we'd both ignored, burning through the routines that had sustained us. The next morning dawned muggy, the storm's remnants dripping from eaves, and I called in sick, first time in years, claiming a migraine. Josiah was already gone, his bedroom door ajar, bed unmade with sketches scattered like fallen leaves. A note on the kitchen counter. Went for a run. We need to talk. Love, Joe. Love. The word mocked me as I brewed coffee, black and bitter, staring at the fridge door plastered with his Polaroids. Us at Coney Island, cotton candy staining our grins. Him graduating, my arms slung proud around his shoulders. By noon, he returned, sweat slicked and breathless, track shorts clinging to his thighs. We sat at the table, the one Elena had painted sunflower yellow, and the air thickened with unspoken recriminations. Last night, he started, voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. Wasn't a phase. It's real. For me, anyway. I nodded, throat tight, searching for the paternal script that had always guided me. I get that, and I'm proud of you for being brave, for owning it. But me, I'm not. I can't be that for you. The lie tasted like ash. In the quiet of my single dom, I'd questioned my own desires, fleeting curiosities dismissed as grief's distortions. But Josiah? He was family, the son I'd chosen. His face fell, a curtain dropping on hope. So that's it? We pretend it never happened. Defiance edged his tone, the same spark that had him arguing with professors over postmodernism. I reached across, squeezing his forearm, brotherly, safe. We don't pretend. We adapt. Like always. He pulled away, standing abruptly, chair scraping like nails on chalkboard. Adapting. That's what you call burying feelings? Fine. But don't expect me to keep massaging your back. Dad. Some lines can't be uncrossed. The weeks that followed were a minefield of avoidance. Our brownstone a pressure cooker hissing with tension. I'd linger at school, volunteering for after-school clubs on queer history. Ironic, given the hypocrisy gnawing at me. While Josiah buried himself in deadlines, his portfolio reviews looming like guillotines. Dinners became solo affairs. Me with takeout Thai, him with energy bars at his desk. The fire escape, once our confessional, stood empty, the city lights mocking our isolation. Yet cracks appeared in the facade. One night, insomnia drove me to the kitchen for water, and there he was, silhouetted against the window, phone glowing as he scrolled. Can't sleep, I ventured, filling a glass. He startled, locking the screen. Nightmares. About Mom. And other stuff. We talked then, haltingly, about Elena's laugh, her secret stash of romance novels. Steamy ones she'd blush over. She always said love finds a way. He murmured, and I nodded, the ache familiar. It does. But it doesn't always look like we expect. That vulnerability bridged us tentatively. We resumed movie nights, buffers of distance via armrests and popcorn bowls. But the undercurrent persisted. His gaze lingering on my hands as I gestured during stories of my Pittsburgh youth, the brush of shoulders in narrow hallways sending sparks neither acknowledged. I dated again, a barista named Mark with an easy smile and shared love for craft IPAs. Our first kiss, in his Alphabet City walk-up, was competent but hollow, my mind drifting to Josiah's confession. The what-ifs it unearthed. Betrayal came swift and sharp, a blade in the dark. It was mid-May, tulips wilting in the community garden we'd planted in her memory. I'd come home early, arms laden with groceries for a rare shared meal. Reconciliation gesture. The front door creaked open to voices. Josiah's, low and urgent, laced with laughter that twisted my gut. In the living room, he sat cross-legged on the rug, facing a guy from his program. Tall, with a man bun and tattoos snaking up his arms. They were close, too close, knees touching. And then the guy leaned in, capturing Josiah's mouth in a kiss that deepened with a hunger that punched the air from my lungs. I dropped the bags, Ken's clattering like accusations. They sprang apart, Josiah's eyes widening in horror. Dad. It's not. The guy, introducing himself as Theo with a forced grin, mumbled excuses about just hanging out. But the evidence was damning. The rumpled cushions, the flush on Josiah's neck. Get out. I heard myself say, voice steel. Theo bolted, door slamming behind him. Josiah rounded on me, fury blazing. You have no right. You're the one who pushed me away. The fight erupted, words as weapons. Pushed you? I was protecting us. I roared, the hypocrisy burning. From what? Your own feelings? He shot back, tears streaking. You act like I'm the villain for wanting more, but I see how you look at me. Like I'm a temptation you can't admit. The truth landed, exposing the raw nerve. My denial wasn't just for him. It was mine, a fortress crumbling under scrutiny. He stormed out into the drizzle, slamming the door, and I collapsed against the wall, the groceries forgotten, spilling like our secrets. Hours ticked by. Panic clawed as I paced, phone clutched, imagining him lost in the city's underbelly. At 2 a.m., the lock clicked. Josiah, drenched and shivering, eyes red-rimmed. I walked the bridge, he whispered, meaning the Brooklyn, that span of steel and despair. Thought about jumping, but I couldn't, because of you. I pulled him into a hug then, fierce and unyielding, water soaking us both. Don't ever, please. We sank to the floor, his head on my chest, sobs racking him until exhaustion claimed us. In the gray light of dawn, as he slept against me, I confronted the mirror of my soul. This love, twisted though it was real. Not romantic, not yet, but profound. A tether forged in fire. From there, the thaw was gradual, laced with therapy. Mine first, a grizzled counselor in Midtown who unpacked my bisexuality, long suppressed under straight-passing privilege. Grief amplifies desire, he said. But it's yours to name. Josiah joined sessions, our trio dissecting the taboo, the power imbalances, the societal noose of step relations. We set boundaries. No touches that blurred lines, no confessions unchecked. But the romance simmered, platonic in form, electric in subtext. Shared sunsets from the roof, his hand in mine during walks in Prospect Park. Whispers of futures where we might redefine family. The climax crested in June, heat wave blanketing the city like a fever dream. Josiah's thesis show at Pratt, a series of mixed media pieces titled Tethers, drew crowds to the gallery in Dumbo, old warehouses reborn as art spaces. His central installation, a massive canvas of intertwined roots, one gnarled and weathered, the other young and probing, knotted in a dance of dependence and defiance. The artist's statement, pinned nearby, read, "Family isn't blood. It's the choice to hold on when the ground shifts." I stood before it, throat tight, as patrons murmured approval. Theo was there, in the corner, eyes on Josiah with lingering hunger, but Joe ignored him, weaving through the throng to my side. "You came," he breathed, Ty Askew, pride lighting his face. "Wouldn't miss it." Our eyes locked, the room fading, and in that suspended breath he stepped closer, too close, his fingers brushing mine in a gesture that screamed intent. Whispers rippled. A curator arched a brow. Panic flared, but so did resolve. "Josiah," I said low, "we're playing with fire." He smiled, bittersweet. "Then let's burn." Before I could protest, he pulled me into the back room, away from prying eyes, the door clicking shut. I broke it off with Theo months ago, he confessed, words tumbling. He was a distraction, a way to prove I could move on. But I can't. Not from you. His hands framed my face, thumbs stroking my jaw, and the dam broke. Not with a kiss, but with truth. I love you, Sam. Not as a son. As a man. The world narrowed to his gaze, hazel depths pulling me under. I thought of Elena, her voice in my dreams. Love bravely, Sam. And in that shadowed alcove, amid crates of unsold canvases, I leaned in, forehead to his. I love you too, but we have to do this right. Away from here, from us as we were. It wasn't passion's surrender. It was permission. A bridge from father to equal. We left the show early, hands linked in the cab, the skyline blurring past. Back home, under the hum of the AC, we talked until sunrise. Logistics of separation, then reunion. I'd sublet my place to a colleague. He'd crash with friends. Months apart to untangle roles, seek counsel, build something new. No rush, I said, tracing his knuckles. We're worth the wait. Summer waned, and so did the distance. By September, as leaves turned in Fort Greene, we met as strangers in a quiet diner off Atlantic Avenue. Booths sticky with history, coffee steaming like old promises. No titles now, just Samuel and Josiah, two men navigating the uncharted. Our first real date. A walk along the waterfront, hands brushing, laughs easy. The kiss came natural, under a harvest moon, tentative and tasting of possibility. Salt from tears, sweet from relief. Betrayal's shadow lingered, Theo's anonymous email weeks later, spilling half-truths to Josiah's advisor, forcing a department inquiry. Whispers at openings, judgmental stares from neighbors who'd pieced together our odd dynamic. But we faced it hand in hand, resilient. Josiah's art evolved, bolder strokes depicting queer kinship unbound by norms. My teaching infused with authenticity, coming out to my classes as bi, ally turned kin. 2 years on, in a loft in Red Hook we'd claimed together, exposed brick and skylights framing the harbor. We marked our anniversary with a quiet vow. No rings, no ceremony. Just Elena's photo on the shelf, smiling benediction. To tethers, Josiah toasted, glasses clinking, his free hand warm in mine. Life isn't fairy tale. It's mosaic, cracked but luminous. We've fought, over his late nights, my grading marathons, and mended stronger. Society's gaze still pricks, labels like groomer hurled in dark corners of the internet. But we stand unbowed, humanistic in our imperfection. Two souls who chose love over convention, proving family is forged, not fated. And in the quiet moments, when his hands find my back, not as son, but lover, kneading away the day's weight, I breathe easy. The storm passed. What remains is us, whole.